Obviously, Conor's coming back, first game here. I guess I'm just wondering, as you look at the tape of him, what kind of stands out to you about what you've seen so far from him this season, and is he kind of the same guy that you had here, or you see some differences?
Yeah, no, I think running around shooting threes, they run some stuff for him, some of the same things we ran for him that I've seen so far. So, yeah, he'll let him fly in transition. Yeah, I think he started early in the year. Now they're bringing him off the bench. So a lot of this, he's got a quick trigger. Ball comes off the hand just like it did when he was here. I think he's a recipient of, I mentioned Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary, the recipient of those guys playing with the ball in their hands and finding him. But yeah, you gotta pay attention to him. You can't lose him. Moves well without the ball. So a lot of the same things that we've seen here.
Greg, after kind of dissecting the trip, do you like how you were able to kind of stack the days? I'm assuming you guys are going to be going back to the Northwest next year. Would you do anything different, or did you like kind of how it was able to kind of be laid out for you?
Win the second game would be the difference. But no, I thought the trip went well. That really not that big a deal with travel. I thought the practices we had were good. I think the days in between were fine. So other than, like I said, performing better in the second half defensively against UCLA, I thought it went as good as we could play in. Yeah, really not that big a deal. I didn't think it was that hard of a trip.
Greg, you said multiple times this year that you have to be able to score in today's college basketball. Does that change what you do in recruiting? I guess specifically, are you willing to give up a little defense these days to get offense, or no?
Well, I think it's a bigger question probably, or a bigger answer, Jim, than just are you looking for scoring more than defense. I think how you put together a roster, and really we're operating on a year-by-year basis, how you assimilate and put pieces together that balance each other out. And obviously offense is an important part of it, but I wouldn't say defense is devalued or less valued. It's just where the game is right now with how it's being played, how it's being called. Offense, obviously, you have to be able to score. And I think it makes, when you have highly skilled offensive players, it makes offense easier, versus if you have too many non-shooters or a non-shooter, which we're trying to avoid non-shooters. It just makes the flow and what you want to accomplish offensively easier. Now, how you snap all that together, I think this team is a good example of that, of the start of this new era, I guess, if you want to call it that, of year by year putting together a team that you got to make sure you have enough of X, but not too much of Y, and how do you balance all that? So having depth and the right pieces across what does next year's team need, who will be back. I mean, those are all questions we continually answer and go forward with. So I think just really, you've heard me say, being very intentional. This team was put together really with an intentional mindset of what do we need at each position, and what do we have enough of, what don't we have enough of, and then it's a matter of those guys coming together, which this group has done a really good job of that. It's always what makes you nervous is how does the chemistry evolve, good or bad, when you have a lot of new faces. So I think, yes, you always want players that can score. It's a lot easier to teach them to play defense than it is to teach them to put the ball in the basket. That's and where the game is right now, the ability to score, and I mean, it doesn't mean you need to score 90 a game. It just means you have to have really skilled players. You better make sure, for the most part, everybody can shoot the three, and because that is so utilized, and it's hard to play against, and it makes offense much less stressful to run. Mike.
With the defense against UCLA, you guys were trending upwards heading into that game. I guess, what were the differences that you noticed as you got to?
We got too spread out, and we had talked about compressing the floor, specifically down the stretch when Mac had the ball. We were too spread out. We didn't give enough help. And I think the other thing was we fouled too much. You know, and that's what I'm trying to work through of, you know, when you have new teams to the league, even though I felt UCLA always played like a Big Ten team, are we going to get officiated differently in different parts of the country with different crews? So that's questions that I'm trying to get the answers to. But I thought two things. One, we got spread out too much, and two, we fouled too much. And we turned the ball over, you know, a few too many times, but more so than the turnovers. It was if you watch us and you freeze the film, there's a lot of gaps that got created, and we can't have that against teams that want to dribble drive and want to attack, and specifically with Mac. When the game was on the line, we didn't offer whoever was lined up with him one-on-one enough support and enough help. I didn't think our fives played very well either. I thought we were late on defensive rotations at the rim. I didn't think we were as aggressive and forceful as we've been. So that's all part of the things. But the two things that jumped out defensively, it was too much fouling and too spread out defensively.
Greg,
And one leads to the other. When you're spread out too much, you have a tendency to foul more because you're late getting to gaps and getting to help.
Greg, you talked before the season about the leap you felt John Blackwell was in position to make from his freshman to sophomore year. What have you seen from him through this portion of the season? And why do you think he's been able to handle this type of load as a sophomore?
I think, obviously, you go back to his freshman year, and I've always said any experience that a freshman can get really is a springboard for year 2 and 3 and beyond. And with that being said, I think the confidence that he came into this year with, and knowing that experience was going to pay off if he worked at his game and worked on his body, which he has. But I think if you see the one thing, it's the confidence, it's the maturity, it's the, you know, he's very flatlined, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, doesn't let good, bad, or indifferent affect him, just keeps playing. But I think the confidence and the belief that he's the best player or one of the best players on the floor every night, I think helps. You know, that's the growth the most I've seen. As much as his game has grown, the mindset has grown more than anything else.
Greg, back here. You guys are wearing suits and sneakers, part of Coaches vs. Cancer.
Right.
Have you seen the sneakers that are designed by the children battling in the hospital, and kind of just your thoughts on that unique experience that they get to design those shoes for you guys?
Yeah, I haven't seen the complete finished product. I know they're in our new coaches locker room that just got opened up today, I believe. I was told this morning they're in there, but we did get a chance to go to the Children's Hospital night before the Iowa game, and got to meet the kids and I met the young man that decorated my shoes. So I think that more than anything, it's going to be really neat to see those and to wear those for the 2 games, knowing that they were, you know, individually designed by both of those kids that are going through really hard times. And hopefully, you know, the visits that we made to the hospital to spend time with them and them getting a chance to see their artwork on display on national TV next week will give them, as I told the players when we were there for an hour and a half on that night, that it gives them a reprieve, you know, kind of an escape, so to speak, from the reality that they have to deal with every day. And hopefully them watching our coaching staff wear those shoes for these 2 games coming up will give them to, along with, you know, they're all big Badger fans. They knew all of our guys by first name and knew a lot about them, but hopefully it gives them another little escape and some happiness around what they have to go through.
Coach, obviously you don't want to end up on the wrong side of the equation like you did on Tuesday night, but are you excited to see what you guys bring on Sunday to try and bounce back against Nebraska in front of a full house, to see what they can do to
We'll
get
bounce back.
on
I mean, we've handled, you know, as I told them Tuesday night, I haven't talked to a somber locker room in well over a month. So, and there's, so we'll go through the film here today in another half hour and learn from it and quickly turn the page, because you see every night in this league, it's very competitive, and you're going to have some really good times, and you can't get enamored with those, and you're going to take one on the chin here or there, and you can't get overwhelmed with that. But I thought they were in a good spot Tuesday night. They're upset. They know we didn't play up to our ability, specifically defensively, and I think, quite frankly, we feel we should be 7-1 right now in the league. We're not. So we've got to make sure as we see, every opponent is a new challenge, and it's a long road we got in front of us yet. But I like how they've always responded. They responded really well through that stretch in December that we had, and I expect nothing less than them to bounce back and be ready to go today and tomorrow and prep for Nebraska Sunday.
Over here, Greg.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your philosophy towards in-game adjustments when it comes to facing a guy like Mara, who you're not thinking about much entering a game, but midway through the game he's taking it over. I'm just curious what was running through your head. Do you make changes mid-game? Do you kind of let your players figure it out? And is that going to change?
No,
how
he
you
was.
see it?
I mean, we didn't. Not that we didn't know about him. I actually watched him this summer in Poland in the U20 championships because he was playing for Spain, and he's all of 7'3". But I think he was the beneficiary of other mistakes in ball screens where we got caught. A couple of them we got caught where we were in no man's land, both the guard on the ball and the big. We got caught we were supposed to be in a drop coverage, and we're hedging. We chased hedges way too far out at times. We shocked the ball screen once out almost to half court, which is not what we do. So we opened the floor up and way too much in the middle of the floor. And that's what I talked about earlier when Mike asked about the defensive stuff. We got too spread out. We did things too aggressively in areas, and he was able to find and be the recipient. And that's a credit to him, and also the credit to guards to find him. He's not hard to miss when he's in the middle of the lane wide open, but he was a recipient of miscues in other areas. And then he made a couple plays too where he ducked guys in. I know in the first half he ducked Nolan in, where Nolan didn't physically disrupt his attempted flash in front of him in the post. And he got on the offensive glass too. And he doesn't have to jump much when you're 7'3" and that long. You just got to be in the right position. We didn't do a good enough job of rooting him out and playing physical with him. So again, the credit goes to him. But the adjustment points are not don't make the mistakes that lead to his being open in the lane. Because if you play it how you're supposed to play it, then that doesn't happen, and the ball doesn't get to where it can find him.
Greg, I don't know how much this is on your radar. I think it was a week and a half ago the NCAA came out with a change to exhibition games, that you don't have to have closed-door scrimmages anymore. They kind of ease some restrictions on it. You've talked about wanting to have more of those games. Is this kind of a step in the right direction, and how do you think this will impact your games against D3 and closed-door scrimmages and things like that?
Yeah, I haven't. I'm aware of what you mentioned, that the rule change was. We haven't jumped that far into next year's scheduling yet, how we'll do that. And Platteville is the in-state game. Apparently the coach there does a pretty good job, although they took one on the chin the other night to Whitewater. First loss in quite a while too. He hasn't talked to a somber locker room in a long time. But so Platteville's next on the list in the rotation through the state. So that obviously combining with the GAC efforts in that part of the state. And then the other one, that'll be talked about more in depth in the spring. I think there's a lot of things that are coming here in terms of legislation. Obviously, the junior college kids getting 5 years. There's talk now of everybody getting 5 years. That hasn't come on the NCAA agenda yet, but it's being talked about. So there's a lot of things in addition to the how do you structure those exhibition games and preseason games. I would like to see more. I think my stance on that is still the same, that I think more would be beneficial versus practicing. I mean, we're practicing for 30 days anyway. What difference does it make if we have a closed scrimmage and open scrimmage? Just the opportunity to learn more against outside competition is valuable. And then obviously the other two rules with the 5 years in both junior college and, how would it impact some of our current guys, because I have a couple guys that are seniors that would have a fifth year, but we don't know where this is going to go. And is it going to get voted on? Is it going to get resolved? Because it impacts, as Jim, we talked about with the compilation and assembly of your future roster. So that we got to get answers to that, and the players need to know too. That a lot of them have asked, a couple of them have asked me about it. Like, hey, I've heard this. What's going to happen? And I've talked to the league, and the league has talked to the NCAA, but we haven't gotten any further down the road on an answer of if this will go through.
I might be overstating, but it seems like smaller, quicker guards who like try to get inside have been a uniquely difficult challenge for you guys, even going back to last year. I guess, what is the reason for that from your perspective?
They're hard to guard. Smaller, quicker, running back built type guards. Yeah, they're hard to guard. I think that what makes Kamari a difficult matchup, just because and if you get spread out defensively, it makes them more impactful. I think the counter to that is how we've changed some of the ball screen coverage, and we've shocked more, or blitzed more, or hedged more. But you also have to be pretty tight around that to do that, because if you're not, and then they counter, then you have bigger gaps that are getting created. So, yeah, I mean those type of players I think cause problems for everybody, specifically if you surround them with shooters and you get, whether they're shooting bigs or other people on the perimeter, but the geometry of how you defend that and where you put your other pieces is really important. And there's been times when we've done it really well, and then, like I said, the back half of that game on Tuesday, we didn't do it well. We got spread out, and it's hard. You're not going to handle those guys one-on-one because there's going to be a foul called. So you have to do it with your support system around it, and your support system needs to be in the right place at the right time. Otherwise, it's a huge advantage for the offense.
So if you have a game where you start to falter on the ball screens, can it like snowball? Is that what
Yeah, we've got 3 different coverages in ball screens, whether we fly trap or, well, actually maybe even more than 3, because we'll do a complete drop coverage too, similar to what the NBA does. We'll shock or hedge some of it. We'll switch sometimes depending on who's setting the ball screen. If it's a pick and pop. We went to switching more of stuff with Bilodeau and we did a better job with that. But we still when we got in trouble, we got spread out with either the big in the screen chased the ball way too far, and then we played disadvantage behind it, or we didn't squeeze enough when they went some of the isolation stuff with Mac down the stretch. All good? Or Mark got one? Okay. All right.
Speaking of, you were kind of talking about how, Blackwell got, that real quality experience last year as a freshman. This year's group, those guys aren't, at least as far as minutes and games go, aren't getting that kind of experience. And I guess I'm wondering what's kind of your philosophy approach in terms of, making sure guys stay engaged, encouraged, especially in this portal era that, they stick around so they feel like they're continuing to be developed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge. I think you mentioned the era we're in right now, where there is such a transient nature, and the objective is to obviously win games. And how do you win games? You have to stay old. I think that's mature. And years gone by, there was a different way of doing it, where you had red shirt and you could incubate and develop, and all of a sudden 3 years into somebody's career, they popped up from sitting by the water cooler, and everybody goes, where did he come from? Well, he was developing in the crock pot, so to speak, over the last 3 years, and now we're in a different era where staying old comes through other sources. So I think who you recruit as freshmen is really important. You have to have people that really want to be here and are invested in the long haul and know that it's going to be a long haul, that it's really hard. If you look across college basketball, there's not a lot of, other than maybe Cooper Flagg and I don't even know who is making a big splash as a freshman, and winning at a high level. So maturity wins, experience wins, and making sure your freshmen understand that, and you have the right people here that really want to be here, and didn't come here for a dollar sign. They came here for what this place represents. and what this place can do for you over the course of your career. Those things are emphasized and talked about, and you got to continue to develop. You develop, every day in practice with what we do. You develop by going against older guys and maturing and growing that way. So it is a challenge. I think every program in the country is trying to find the right path for them, and we all want to win at the highest level, and by and large, you're doing that with older guys, and that's via portal. That's via having guys develop and grow here as time goes on, like a McGee and a Gilmore. I've always said, come about it the long, hard way. Even though Cam transferred, he still has really had to sit and kind of work his way through it, and to get to the point where he is now. Do players of the future have that type of patience to do that? And the same thing with Gilly. Now I know he came as a walk-on, been on and off scholarship throughout his career, but he's come the longer, harder path. And I think the portal impact, and I think the international impact, because those players by and large are coming older. They're 20 year, like Mara is 21 years old, so or that's his name, right? At UCLA. And by and large, the players that we're evaluating and talking to and, recruiting internationally are all older guys. They're not 17 years old. They're 19, 20, 21. So they've had experience and maturity, and they played against high-level competition. So and the portal brings you the same thing with age and maturity and experience. And I think that's where we're at today in college basketball. Is if you want to win at a high level, you need to be really talented. College basketball is going to get better because now you get I mentioned the junior college thing, the 5 years. If the other 5-year window goes in, it's going to get better because it's going to get older and more mature. And we're not the only school looking at international kids. 3/4 of our league is over in Europe looking at kids. So it's the battle to stay as old and as mature as you possibly can, and the ways of doing that have changed. Jim.
Following up on my recruiting and offense, you guys are playing faster than you ever have. You're scoring more than you ever have. I would think those are things that could you use as selling points on the recruiting trail. Are you hoping that this makes you even more appealing to today's?
It has.
Okay.
It has already. I mean, I think just if you watch us, and we've had kids in to watch us, we've had kids from Europe watch us. They watch us online, albeit a 7-8 hour time difference internationally. This is an appealing way to play. And I think it's up tempo. But it's also really efficient. It's smart. It's not wild, right? We're for the most part really under control. The spacing, the ability to shoot threes, whether it be in transition or the half court, the ability and opportunity to play in pick and rolls, which they all want to play at the next level, regardless of it's NBA or overseas. You have to be able to play in a pick and roll. That's just where the game is right now. So, and then you have bigs that shoot it. So, those that are larger than average that we're talking to, they see us play and watch them, roll hard to the rim, play out of short rolls and middle ball screens, and then obviously shoot threes. It's really it's an appealing way to play. I mean, it's and you win at a high level. I think that's the other thing that in the recruiting, and we've had this conversation many times in our office, who we evaluate through the portal. Really, are they coming from winning programs, and have they been around winners? How have they been coached? All those things play into the evaluation, whether it's internationally, portal, high school. You want winners in your locker room and people that have been a part of a winning culture and understand what that takes. But yeah, how we play, I think offensively, there's no doubt it's moved the needle pretty drastically here in a short amount of time, because this has been I think this evolution or transformation or growth is barely 2 years old. So. All right, thank you. Oh, you found my shoes. I did. All right. Emmett, yep. Yeah, so he did a good job with them. So Emmett, if you're watching out there, hopefully these take us to 2 victories here. We'll be thinking about you as we wear them, and the other guys, the kids that decorated my staff shoes as well.
John, Tanjay, I know obviously it is playing Nebraska. You're not going. It's not like you're going back home. But I'm just curious. Growing up in the state, one, I don't know how much they even showed interest in you coming. When you were in high school. Can you talk a little bit about that? And growing up, were you? I don't know. Is this game one maybe you were looking forward to a little bit just because it's the home state team? What's kind of been your approach and thought on that?
Yeah, I think, being from Nebraska, the state is all around, especially the football program. It's just, I guess I got this game. It has a little bit extra excitement just from being a hometown kid. But as far as getting recruited, I wasn't highly recruited out of high school, and they weren't one of the teams that recruited me. But, it just is what it is, and I'm happy to be here.
John Blackwell, now that you've had time to digest and kind of look through that last play with the game tied, I guess, what are some of the things that stand out, and what are some of the things that you could learn from an experience like that?
Obviously, could have probably just waited a little bit longer and probably ran a play. And then, obviously, I drew a couple defenders. I saw, I think Max was open and Tanji was open. But it is what it is. You learn off it and you get better off it. But, yeah.
John Blackwell, I'm curious if you've talked to Conor since he's left here, and what have you kind of seen with how he's developed his game over the course of the season?
Yeah. I mean, I had a few conversations with him. I remember when he first got there, he called me and showed me his new apartment. But, yeah, I mean, that's my guy for life. I'm excited what he's doing. At Nebraska right now, having a good season. I'm even more proud of him, how he's grew his faith. He's public about it, and he's on Instagram always talk about his faith. So, yeah.
Back here, guys, and we'll start with you, John Blackwell, but for both of you guys, it's been a while since you guys had lost, and it's a chance for you guys to bounce back in front of a sold-out crowd. It's been a while since you've been back at the Kohl Center, but on a Sunday afternoon in front of a sold-out crowd against what's become a rival for you, John Tanjay, it's, Nebraska. What will it mean to be back, and what will it mean for a chance to bounce back and get back in the win column?
Yeah, it's definitely another opportunity to just get better and play in front of the Kohl Center again, get it back going, get back in that win column. I think everybody in the locker room is excited to, come back and play and get a W on Sunday.
Yeah, it's good to get back home and, play in front of the Kohl Center again and, just get in a rhythm with that and, just compete come Sunday.
Wondering if both you two can speak to this. In 2 of your Big Ten losses, the team scored. Defense has kind of been more of the concern there. And I guess I'm wondering, as players, is it easier to kind of hone in and make defensive fixes and change corrections, or is it a little easier, like when maybe the offense is struggling, to go in and kind of correct that kind of thing?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I think defense is probably, it's our first focus for big games, and I think defense obviously leads to offense. So if you can fix some of those mistakes and correct some of those things schematically and just with effort, offense will usually take care of itself.
Yeah, like Tanji said, defense is most important. I think with defense, you can just fix by effort and just playing hard and being physically tough, and then the offense will reward itself when you do that on the defensive side. So, yeah, we need to focus on our defense and get better at it every day.
John Tanjay, this program completely transformed its offense last season. I'm curious, when you're going through the portal, when you're making that decision, how how much you looked at that and what you found appealing about this offense in particular, and where you could have a fit in it?
Yeah, I definitely watched a lot of film about watching the offense and seeing where I could fit in, and I just like I like how it's made for guys to be efficient and share the ball and be able to lean on multiple guys night in and night out, and not just rely on one or two guys. Just to it's kind of more of a balanced thing, and an offense that's at times hard to stop. So it was definitely something I was looking forward to coming playing.
Anybody else? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.